Like many of the other installments in this franchise, Fast 10 is a subpar story featuring absurd action lacking any comprehensible sense of physics. It aimlessly throws together elements of the franchise as the story nears its conclusion, which leads to a random mess of characters appearing throughout the movie. Jason Momoa's lively performance as the newest villain adds a fresh spirit that does just enough to shake up the franchise and set the stakes for an upcoming end. And the fast pacing makes the movie fly by fast enough to be a tolerable experience. It isn't a good film, but if you know what you're getting into beforehand, it can be a fun time. I wasn't big on the 9th film in this franchise, at least from what I remember, but other than that, there's normally at least something good to take away from these movies. So while I didn't expect much coming into this one, I had at least had hope that it would be a decent movie, especially since I have heard nothing but praise regarding Momoa and his performance as the new villain. He was easily the best part of the movie. He's different from Cypher and any other villain this franchise has had before. He's just so much more of a vibrant personality. His first present-day scene really did a good job of hooking me onto him as a villain and wanting to see more of him. And because of his backstory, this film ties a lot into Fast 5, which despite being my favorite of the franchise, I barely remember anything about, so the opening sequence was a bit confusing. It also felt extremely long just to set up a villain. This movie also does a lot to tie into other parts of the franchise. Like I said in my initial thoughts up top, it feels like previous elements are randomly thrown together, and it doesn't help that I don't remember much about any of the other movies. I couldn't remember if Han was back in the last movie, or if this was the first time we see him back after his presumed death. As nice as it was to see Deckard Shaw for a short scene before he disappeared, the way that interaction went down had me lost. I feel like the big one is probably Giselle coming in at the end, who I thought was dead but apparently not. Hobbs shows up in the mid-credits scene, and I don't recall where his story ended last. Having Jacob back after F9 was nice, especially since we get to see more of him, Mia, and Dom with their sibling relationships, but he felt like a very different character here than when we last saw him. There were just so many different characters in this one from across the franchise that sometimes only appeared for a short scene or two and then were gone. I get that this is supposed to be the first part of a 3-part finale, but it should still be able to competently stand alone on its own. Another thing that really bugged me about the story was the use of the agency. It was tolerable because Kurt Russell was involved as Nobody, and then after him even Little Nobody, but for some reason neither of them had any presence in the movie other than Little Nobody after the Rome heist. I don't really care about Ames or any of those other agency scenes, and even Brie Larson as Nobody's daughter Tess was hard to care about. There were moments when I found her interesting, but there was just so many different storylines to follow here that we never really spent enough time with her. Same thing with Letty, who after being captured was pretty much put on the back burner for the entire movie, barely getting any screen time other than her fight with Cypher. But the story isn't really what these movies are known for. We get a decent amount of story at the beginning, but other than that it's just a lot of action and attempts by Dante to hurt Dom and his family, which ends in a fun cliffhanger. The action was fun and exciting, and I thought it was a good balance of street racing and realistic action, and then the extreme moments closer to the end. The Rome heist basically turned into real-life Rocket League, and for the most part the visual effects of it all never looked too off. The humor didn't always work for me, especially when it was centered around Jacob, but Roman, Tej, and Ramsey continue to make a solid trio. Let me know what you think of Fast 10 in the comments below, and what movie reviews you'd like to see in the future. Remember to like the video, and subscribe for more movie content, and follow me on my various platforms listed in the description. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow.